AI in Action is brought to you by Alldus International, covering your business's staffing, consulting, and networking needs. Our host brings you the leading minds in AI, sharing their story, their success, and their advice. Focusing on fast-tracking you to the top, AI in Action cuts through the hype to help you kickstart your data science career. To listen to the latest AI in Action podcast, head over to www.alldus.com/podcast or subscribe via iTunes, Stitcher, or Google Podcasts.
You're listening to AI in Action. I'm your host, JP Valentine. Our guest today is Lou Zhang. Lou is the Director of Data Science for MachineMetrics. Lou, welcome to the show.
Great to be here, JP. Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure, Lou. So let's start with yourself. Can you give us a brief overview of your background, where you first got started in technology? Talk us through your journey, some of the roles you've held along the way, taking us up to your current position leading the data science practice at MachineMetrics.
Yes, absolutely. So I actually, my undergrad education was in finance and economics. So it wasn't directly within the realm of technology, but I kind of moseyed my way over here over the course of a couple of years. I actually started at an economic consulting firm called the Berkeley Research Group, quantifying damages in lawsuits for corporate clients. And so, that was kind of tangentially related to what I'm doing now, basically using big data tools like SQL and SAS to try and figure out, how much big clients should be suing each other for, frankly. And as you can imagine, I didn't find that very satisfying personally. I felt like my skill sets weren't necessarily being used for the betterment of society. We had some clients that were a little unsavory, and at the end of the day, I thought to myself, well, what could I be doing to actually, move the world in a way that I actually wanted to move instead of just, kind of making rich people richer. And so from there, I jumped to a company called Tyco International, which is a big manufacturer of all sorts of industrial components, from sprinklers to valves, stuff that goes inside walls that you can't really see. And I had a product management role there, launching new products and basically still working on the quantitative side of things a little bit, but mainly, as they call it, herding cats. So mainly making sure that projects were moving forward, kind of serving as a scrum master sort of role. And I thought that was interesting for a bit. And I actually really liked manufacturing because you were making things that had a tangible impact on people's lives. Sprinklers saving people's lives, valves and pipes and fittings, essential towards constructing safe buildings that are comfortable to live in. So I really wanted to stay in manufacturing. And so, fast forward a little bit and much more related to what I'm doing now, I got a job at the Association for Manufacturing Technology, AMT, in Washington, D.C. And they are the advocacy organization for advanced manufacturing, machine tools, robotics, things of that sort. I was on the strategic analytics team there, which means that I really interacted a lot with leadership and CEOs at our members, which were usually small and medium size, all the way actually up to really large manufacturers. So the entire spectrum, and helping them run analysis to help optimize their businesses. I also served in a advocacy role a little bit, so attending political functions in DC and really working with political leadership to try and push through policies that were favorable to manufacturing. And then from there, that's when I really actually got into data science. My next role was at a company called IHS Markit, a big data conglomerate that owns Carfax, RootMetrics, recently bought up by S&P Global, actually. So they really have a lot of great data sets on all sorts of things. And I was a data analyst there in their advanced analytics team. That was incredibly interesting, actually. We were using data sets from companies that we acquired to create data products that we could then sell to our other clients. So, really using a very heavy technical skill set there to create products that we could actually commercialize. And then from there, actually, my mentor at AMT, Russ, he actually knows the co-founders at my current company, MachineMetrics. And currently I serve as the director of data science. I actually started here about 3 years ago when we were tiny, pre-Series A funding, seed funding. It was just 20 people at that time as their first data scientists. And I was really in charge of kind of scoping out what we could do with these large data sets that we were collecting from machine tools across the United States. My specific role was to see if there was any predictive power by leveraging cross-machine data sets across different factories and different facilities that ran the same machine tool.
Lou, let me jump in there and thank you so much for that overview, because it tells quite an interesting journey coming from where you started to exploring interests, which have now led you to Director of Data Science role. Before going into any more detail about the evolution of your role from joining as lead, as first data scientist to now Director of the group, tell us who MachineMetrics are, because it's quite fascinating, but I want to give a high-level overview of who the organization are and what you guys are doing to impact space with modern technology.
We started about 5 or 6 years ago, and we're a venture capital funded startup in the space. We really wanted to start the company to basically help bring manufacturing to the 21st century. Our primary product back a couple years ago was to really monitor what machines are doing on the shop floor. So if you think about just the basic stuff, seeing when your machine is on or off, or in an alarm state, or if there's something going on the machine, that wasn't really the status quo, back 10, 20, 30 years ago. And what we started with was just this very basic, machine monitoring product that could tell you, well, is your machine on or off right now? Are you ahead or behind on your parts? Did it stop for a reason that you didn't know about? And so it was incredibly value add for our customers just to be able to log in from home and then look at what their machines were doing at their shop floor, 5 miles away or something like that. And gradually, now what we're transitioning to is becoming sort of an industrial IoT platform for Industry 4.0. And, there's a lot of buzzwords there, but frankly, what it really means is we're looking to be that operating system for the factory floor, integrating with various ERP systems, having APIs that customers can use to build applications on top of with, all the data that MachineMetrics is collecting. And my specific role is really at the heart of that, which is to enable what we call autonomous machining and manufacturing, which really means trying to enable lights out manufacturing on the shop floor. So if you think about lights out manufacturing, it's really hard to do. You have to have a lot of processes in place, and you can't just set the machine and let it go without any planning, really. And key to that actually is being able to predict when your machine is going to stop or fail or break apart or crash. So my role is really to look at these large data sets, petabytes of data from these thousands of machines that we're collecting data from, and see if there's any common patterns that exist between them that manifest before failure. This was previously quite difficult to do in the past because data was rather siloed. You had one factory putting their all their data files from that machine up on a desktop computer, and then that was pretty much it. But our approach is really a cloud-only approach. So we leverage the AWS ecosystem in order to collect data en masse from thousands of machines across the United States, and use that, mine that data in order to find these patterns and really deploy applications completely remotely out to these factories in order to stop their machines before we see potential failure. So part of the novelty behind this, and part of why we're this VC-funded SaaS company, is because we're really looking to make a scalable product. It's a product that doesn't, need additional sensors that are aftermarket installations. We use the embedded sensors inside the machine, and people literally just have to plug in an Ethernet cable into this, edge device that we mail you guys, and they can get started with this. During the pandemic, actually, we implemented a predictive system that was able to save one of our customers tens of thousands of dollars every year. And we never stepped foot on their factory floor. We never flew there. Nobody ever had to, worry about getting COVID. That was that really, to me, demonstrated the real power behind this. That it's not just like a one-off thing. It's really something that we can repeat over and over again.
Absolutely. No, I think that's a very well laid out overview of the company, but also impact the industry. So before moving on and talking about the growth of your team and the outlook on the future, I want to stay on this topic of impact because people hear about the fourth industrial revolution or Internet of Things, and as you said, they're quite buzzwords. But to help us further visualize, where this trend is going to, can you give us some interesting examples other than the recent one with COVID, or the types of organizations who are now looking to implement this technology in terms of size, scale, and just how big a difference this can make in terms of revenue, man hours, and everything else?
Yeah, that's a great question, JP. So I'll just start by saying that this technology isn't targeted towards any specific segment of the market. We have customers that are small mom and pop shops all the way up to publicly traded Fortune 500 companies who are engaging with us on this predictive technology. What I will say is that one of the very unique aspects of this product that really kind of addresses how manufacturing works in the United States, especially, is that it's actually it gives small and medium-sized manufacturers 10, 20, 50 machines who previously didn't have access to Industry 4.0 technologies. It was hard for them to engage with the big conglomerates of the world like SAP or Siemens, and they can't spend millions of dollars in outlay in order to get started with this sort of stuff. And what we've done is we've really made it a plug and play approach for them. They don't have to have huge outlays. We sell the hardware to them at cost. We don't have a consulting fee, and we just have an annual subscription so that they can start and stop us whenever they want. And the fact that we don't have to go on site and bring a whole team there for a couple of weeks and consult with them about a whole bunch of stuff, that's really enabled a lot of these manufacturers that have been left behind the past couple of years to be able to experience these cost savings and these efficiencies.
That's such a good example, Lou, and it's great to hear yet another example of modern technology disrupting the space and democratizing data. Whereas traditionally it was the big multinationals who could afford to invest in this, but MachineMetrics are now bringing it to the doors of any enterprise who wants to be more efficient. And whether it's man hour savings, increased productivity, better production lines, less churn, less breakdown. There's so many implications to having the machines running better, which is great. So Lou, I want to go through your journey, because you mentioned that you came in as the very first data scientist back in, what was March of 2018. So can you talk us through the evolution of the data team, how it's changed over time, and what it looks like currently, and giving us some insight into the day-to-day of your data team?
Sure. So when I first started, it was just me, obviously. And I spent a lot of time just getting the lay of the land, trying to ascertain exactly how robust our data was, if there were any holes in it, if there was anything of issue with how we were collecting data. And really for the first year, I would say it was a lot of that. It was a lot of data cleaning. It was a lot of trying things to see if they would work. And at that time, we actually brought on an intern. He was a PhD student at a university near us. to help with all of this. Because, a lot of companies who collect tons of data, they don't necessarily take the time to really understand what that data is and what value it has to them. Just because you have a lot of data doesn't mean that it's actually all that valuable. And so we really wanted to highlight the pros, the cons, what we thought would be a nice direction to take the data science team the first year. And a year might sound like a long time for that, but I assure you, it's not. There's plenty of things to do during that year. We looked at how viable it was to look across our entire customer base to find trends. We looked at potential data products that we can make out of this that were novel to the industry. We looked at real technical things like sampling frequency of our data and what was suitable for our purposes. And then year two was when we raised our Series A. So that was an $11 million Series A, which was huge for us. So in addition to having an intern, we were able to bring on another full-time data scientist. He's a key member of our team, obviously Brock, and he is he's really in charge of continuing the data acquisition and data cleaning, as well as some of the more advanced machine learning stuff that we do here. Right now, because of the pandemic and because of headcount and things like that, it's just me and him. Sometimes it's me, him, and a couple interns. But right now, we're really focused on bringing this product to market and really being able to demonstrate value to customers, and ultimately, translating that into a revenue stream for MachineMetrics. So that's just a brief overview of the evolution of the team. We're looking at actually raising our Series B in the next couple of months, and the plan is to build out the data science team even more, hire data scientists who specifically focuses on perhaps the machine learning aspects of the data. So working with Spark and big data tools, as well as perhaps bringing in a data scientist to look at more product data science. So looking at how users are looking at our products and how we could perhaps evolve our product to the next step using this sort of quantitative user data that we've been collecting. So there's a lot of exciting things for us going ahead. And what we see is this is just the beginning of the journey. There's plenty of growth to be had in the next couple of years.
Yeah, and with an industry that's only going to continue to invest in this type of technology, I'm sure there's a lot of projects and a lot of work down the line for you. I want to get your take, Lou, on the impact, not just to people in manufacturing, because it's something you and I spoke about previously. I know it's something you're passionate about, and I think it's important to celebrate, in part to dispel some of the negative aspects or negative myths associated with industrial automation and the fourth industrial revolution. There's a lot of positives that people are not as aware of. So I think you'd be the ideal person to shed some light on that.
Sure. So let me just first say that everywhere we've implemented this predictive technology, there were never any headcount reductions, because all it did was add more money to spend to these enterprises. They're not wasting money making scrap parts, breaking tools, having downtime. And when your revenue increases from that, why would you cut your workforce? You would expand and not not shrink, I guess. So that's my experience in terms of the potential fears of disrupting the labor market. And a lot of these people who were spending their time picking out scrap parts from bins, or very tediously reconfiguring the machine every time it crashed, their time has been freed up to more high value activities. So working with me to improve the algorithm, looking at higher level strategic initiatives, now there's extra money given back to the organization to train them. So this is really a positive and virtuous cycle is what I see. Kind of on the second part of your question, which is where do you see this sort of all going? You kind of envision the autonomous factory of the future. 2250 machines are making machines. It's just a cycle that doesn't necessarily need humans, and that might sound scary to some people, but to me that sounds like it really frees people up to not have to do some of these tedious things that were really central to the manufacturing process in the 20th century. And frankly, if we're not the ones doing this in the United States, other countries are going to figure this out, and they're going to reduce their costs. They're going to streamline their operations. And frankly, people that I've talked to in academia and in nonprofits actually feel like this is a national security threat for us if we don't address this immediately. You can't be competitive globally in the 21st century if 75% of your production capacity is still people writing stuff on chalkboards and trying to track their production with notepads. There are a ton of liabilities with that, and I think organizations that I talked to, like NIST or like AMT, they're well aware of this, and they're well aware that organizations like MachineMetrics, we need to kind of step up and make sure that we kind of evangelize not just the potential good parts of the technology that we're doing, but also the risks of not doing anything. So it's going to be a different century, and this next decade, these next couple decades coming up, I think are really going to be a make it or break it point in terms of American manufacturing, American competitiveness, and innovation. And we need to keep pushing on these sorts of technologies in order to maintain the status that we had in the 20th century. We're not going to get there by just doing the status quo. We have to innovate, continually move forward, and make ourselves a little uncomfortable, just like we have, for the past 100, 200, 300 years. That's what this country is built on, is a continuous cycle of ingenuity and innovation.
Absolutely. I think that's a perfect way to end the conversation. The message I have taken from this is if we rely on this type of change and evolution to happen from the top down, we'll be left lagging in the wind. It's top down, it's bottom up, and everyone can play their part. And MachineMetrics are a perfect example of an organization who are playing a pivotal role in this. So, Lou, thank you for your time. We appreciate you coming on, talking to us about your role, business, and what's in store. We would look forward to seeing what you guys can accomplish.
Great. Thank you for your time, JP, and I enjoyed talking to you today.
AI in Action is brought to you by Alldus International, covering your business's staffing, consulting, and networking needs. Alldus offer an exec search program. Alldus can help you discover how data science and AI can transform your company. With our unrivaled network of C-suite executives and senior AI professionals, we offer retained search services across the US and Europe. Get the Alldus advantage. Become a member of the Alldus community and enjoy some of the following: AI meetups. Once a month, our community gathers to listen to some of the leading experts in the world of data science and AI. Our speakers come from all over the world, including Dublin, Boston, and Frankfurt. We also have our AI mentors. Our experts will provide mentoring to Alldus members. And don't forget our AI in Action podcast. Each week we have guests from all over the world talking us through their education, career, and more. Become an Alldus member and get the Alldus advantage. For more information and to sign up for our newsletter, log on to www.alldus.com. That's www.alldus.com. Alldus International, empowering through AI.